at the beginning of
yung lakas ng bagyo sa mga kaya yung mga anak ko. Dumating na yung bagyo sa Pilipinas. Ay, sadaya na. Ay. Kawawa naman itong mga tao dito eh. Ayan, Nicolab, shout out. Ay, kawawa ang mga tao. Ang lakas ng bagyo sa Pilipinas. Hindi lang sa ngayon at ngayon ngayon.
Tama ko nga naglagpas sa araw-araw. Mga 3 years na.
Sobrang lakas ng hangin sa kanila yun. Hindi pa yun. Hangin.
Ayan ang ating mga kabahayan.
Oh, malalim na ang tubig.
Uy, grabe.
Ya Allah.
Ay, sa mga iskita ng anay, ang priority nindo kami mga... Balik!
Sobrang lakas ng storm sa Pilipinas ngayon. Nakamonitor tayo ngayon sa Pilipinas eh. Yung mga pamilya natin sana safety doon. Ang lalim na ng tubig ngayon. Ang lalim na ng tubig. Ang lakas pa ng ulan at hangin.
Yan, mga volunteers
Sobrang
natin.
lamig
At
ngayon.
sila po ang nag-resto ngayon.
Bago lang po siya nag-landfall, so ang tubig niya ay nakabewang na po.
Ura na.
Ayan, sobrang lakas po.
Ano?
Sa Sorsogon po ito.
Ano?
Sobrang lakas ng hangin. Ang hangak ngayon malakas na. Kaya ang mga protect people in the Philippines. It was... Sa Sorsogon pa lang ito. There is no storm there in the Philippines. Please help us pray. Hindi man ako sa Luzon, hindi man ako sa Visayas. Sa Mindanao po ako, pero yung family ko na iba, nandiyan sa Visayas, nandiyan din sa Luzon. Yung mga cousin ko, kahit na hindi tayo scope niya, lakas tayo lahat ngayon. Nag-umpisa na po ang mga tao ngayon panik kasi ang lakas ng tubig. Mantakin mo, malakas na ang hangin, malalim pa ang tubig, malamig na malamig, may mga bata pala maliliit na mga inosente talaga na hindi alam ang mga pangyayari na ganun ba. Kawawa yung may mga maliliit na bata, hindi kaya yung lamig sa labas. Kasi kahit sa evacuation, binaha din. Sa Sorsogon pa lang yun. Ayan po, power winds and storm surge. Sobrang lakas ng hangin po at sobrang lakas ng ulan.
On November 9th, the Philippines is bracing for one of the most powerful storms to strike the region in recent months as Typhoon Yuan, internationally known as Phumwang, enters the Philippine area of responsibility and continues to strengthen rapidly.
Ang lakas ng hangin.
According to the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, the typhoon currently exhibits sustained winds of 185 kilometers per hour, with gusts reaching 230 kilometers per hour, classifying it as a super typhoon by international standards.
Grabe yung tubig ngayon. Ang flat. Too much water.
Meteorologists warn that its rapid intensification poses a serious threat to life, property, and critical infrastructure, particularly in eastern Luzon and nearby island provinces, where prior storms have already left the ground saturated and coastal defenses weakened.
Is na Iloilo.
Authorities have undertaken extensive evacuation operations, relocating over 1,000 residents. Waynes, Aurora, Isabella, Quirino, and parts of northern Quezon. Local governments have opened temporary evacuation centers in schools, gymnasiums, municipal halls, and other public buildings, providing food, water, bedding, and medical supplies. Evacuation teams, supported by the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, continue to monitor rivers, streams, and coastal areas for early signs of flooding and storm surge, advising residents to remain indoors and avoid traveling in low-lying zones. Coastal areas are particularly vulnerable to storm surges estimated at up to 5 meters, while mountainous provinces face the additional threat of landslides due to soil saturation from recent rains. Officials have urged residents to remain alert and comply fully with evacuation directives to ensure safety. Local authorities has raised Signal 5, the highest level storm warning, for Catanduanes, northern Aurora, and select coastal towns in eastern Luzon. Metro Manila and neighboring provinces are under Signal 3, indicating strong winds, heavy rainfall, and potential flooding. Schools, government offices, and public transportation systems in affected areas have been suspended, and maritime travel has been restricted due to dangerous sea conditions. Meteorologists project that Typhoon Yuan will make landfall late Sunday or early Monday, initially striking southern Isabella and northern Aurora, then moving across the central and northern provinces of Luzon. The storm is expected to maintain typhoon strength for several hours inland, only weakening gradually after exiting the island, potentially leaving a trail of widespread flooding, wind damage, and structural destruction. Experts have highlighted that Typhoon Yuan's impact is expected to extend well beyond wind damage. Torrential rains are likely to cause river overflows, flash floods, and dam spills, placing adjacent towns and villages at high risk. Landslides are anticipated in mountainous provinces where steep terrain and saturated soils make communities particularly vulnerable. Agricultural sectors are under threat, with rice paddies, cornfields, and other crops potentially destroyed by flooding and high winds, while livestock and fisheries may suffer significant losses. Disruptions to infrastructure, including roads, bridges, power supply, and communication networks, are also expected, which could complicate relief and recovery efforts in the days following the storm.
Because the not allowed, especially the plantation, rice, corn, any kind of going on. Damage.
The Philippine government has mobilized a coordinated response, involving multiple agencies working to mitigate the storm's effects. The Department of Social Welfare and Development has deployed relief teams to evacuation centers to ensure continuous supply of food, water, and medical necessities. The authorities continues to provide hourly updates on the typhoon's trajectory, wind intensity, and rainfall forecasts, while international meteorological agencies contribute satellite imagery and climate data to support local disaster preparedness efforts. Authorities have stressed the importance of remaining vigilant and following official advisories to avoid preventable casualties and minimize property damage.
Like too sad now in the Philippines. Mantakin mo. The first earthquake, only second week, storm, then now very strong again the storm come.
Residents in affected provinces have been strongly advised to secure homes by reinforcing windows, tying down loose objects, and clearing drainage systems to prevent water accumulation. Communities are urged to prepare emergency kits including food, water, first aid supplies, flashlights, batteries, and communication devices. Travel should be avoided in coastal, low-lying, and flood-prone areas until authorities declare it safe. Meteorologists forecast that Typhoon Yuan's path may affect up to 54 provinces, including Metro Manila. The storm is expected to bring prolonged rainfall and strong winds that could in the temporary disruption of transportation, suspension of commerce, and widespread power outages. Communication networks may also be affected, hampering the delivery of emergency information and relief operations. Forecasters caution that while Yuan may gradually weaken once inland, its high intensity and rapid progression make it one of the most dangerous storms to strike the country this year. Economic analysts have projected that the typhoon may cause significant disruption to agricultural production,
Kumusta ka po dyan
fisheries,
sa
and
inyo?
local
Kumusta
business
po dyan sa
operations.
inyong lugar ngayon, Ludi? Kumusta po dyan? Kasi dito sa mga news ngayon, no, dito sa sobrang lakas na po. Kumusta po sa inyo?
Infrastructure repairs, recovery of lost crops, and reconstruction of damaged homes and public buildings will require
Ingat-ingat po kayo kasi
substantial
malakas
resources.
talaga ang ulan. Sa Aurora po ata ito, ang lakas. Kanina sa kami din po. Sana po okay lang po ang lugar nyo. Thank you po sa pag-thumbs-up. Lodi Wisty, kumusta po ang lugar nyo ngayon dyan?
The government is coordinating with provincial authorities and international agencies to mobilize support for post-storm
Lakas
recovery,
ng hangin.
while emphasizing
Ingat-ingat
that
po
early
kayo kasi
preparedness
sobra
is
pong lakas.
essential to
Nakikita ko
minimize
ngayon,
losses and
sobrang
protect
lakas.
vulnerable
Ano
populations.
na lang kaya kung
The
lalabas yung
situation
mga tao
remains
na
dynamic,
nabahaan.
with continuous
Tapos ang
monitoring of the
lakas ng
storm's
hangin,
movement,
ang lamig pa.
intensity, and
Halos
potential
hindi
shifts
maklaro
in
yung
trajectory. Authorities
yung
continue
lugar
to issue
sa
public
lakas ng hangin
advisories,
at ulan.
urging citizens to comply with
Ingat-ingat po
evacuation
kayo.
orders and to remain informed about local conditions.
Halos hindi makalakad ang tao sa lakas ng hangin. Parang malipad.
Residents are advised to avoid complacency, as even areas
Mag-ready po
not
kayo ng mga
directly in the
flashlight,
storm's
lalo na
landfall
ngayong
zone
gabi.
may experience heavy
Diyan sa
rainfall,
atin.
flash floods, and strong gusts of wind.
Kasi baka mawala ang electric kasi sa lakas ng hangin. Masira talaga.
Officials have reiterated that proper planning, adherence to safety guidelines, and early action are the most effective measures in mitigating the impact of Typhoon Yuan. Emergency services, disaster management teams, and local governments are prepared to respond swiftly to any incidents caused by the typhoon.
Kawawa ang mga
Citizens
rescuer.
are
Sana
reminded
yung
that
pamilya nila
preparedness,
safety din.
caution, and cooperation with authorities are essential to weather the storm safely and to reduce both human and economic losses.
Maraming salamat
The
po,
Philippines
Lodi
remains on high alert
Rizky.
as Typhoon Yuan advances, and continued vigilance is expected in the coming days as the
Salamat sa
storm makes its
suporta.
approach and eventual landfall.
Ayan po, sana mag-ingat po ang taga-Pilipinas ngayon. Keep us everyone. Kasi ang lakas talaga. Mantakin mo kahit ang kameraman hindi na maklaro at hindi makalakad masyado sa sobrang lakas. Buti na naka-ready din ang nating government, no, na monitor kaagad. naiwasan din, naka-evacuate na yung nasa banda sa mga tabing dagat at ilog.
Wala na taga barangay dahil. Lagi, mga ito rescue. Mga may rescue.
See? They want rescue.
Lagi, mga pa lagi ang... Lagi, arita ba? Agi-tagi, oh. Oh, namay, ganan rin, oh. Lagi. Lawang na, dira?
The water now.
Ula, lagi, trayan ka na mo, te. Sige lang, kaya mo ba trayan? Sige lang, Bert.
That was flood.
At tagi ba? Ano to, kung baka damadama sa kuan? Gawin diri na to balikan, hindi mag-selfie ang kamay ra kayo.
Ikaw sila gata dito ko.
Lagi. Tadon lang karo to mga gamit. Dili Bert.
Minsan,
Tara. Sunod na dito, saka na. Sunod na dito. Washing. Washing. Sige na, bahala na to eh.
Abaga na po. It's meant in shoulder. The water is just the
Ah, palang sa
water.
kami kaya mo, sisiyo nito. Madama ba? Palang ko ni.
And still
O,
many
tayo na, malagay tira
people.
na may agana. Tara ba, padong babaw. Sige ba, na may agana. Ay, balihog ko. Tara na.
The problem, in the second floor, many people, the capacity become
Yung baliktatan habang may panahon pa. Mabuting lumikas na lang po tayo habang maaga pa. Huwag po tayong magtuwag sa ating kabayan sapagkat ang nakandang bagyo ay mayatid na malakas na hangin, ulan at mataas na alon. Magandang umaga po para sa inyong kaligtasan habang may panahon pa. At makakabuting lumikas na lang po tayo habang maaga pa. Huwag po tayo magtayuan sa ating kabayan sapagkat ang nakandang bagyo ay mayatid na malakas na hangin, ulan at mataas na alon. Magandang umaga po para sa inyong kaligtasan habang may panahon pa. Kung pinapalo
bakit basta ating yung lalo kasi mag-project yan alam mo talaga lagi pag-uwi Christmas talaga sa Pilipinas dito nakakayayari pero sobra ngayon kasi bago lang nangyari ang earthquake dumating ang unang bagyo ngayon pinakamalakas naman na bagyo. Hindi madaling gumana ng ganitong sitwasyon sa Pilipinas. Yung mahihirap, mas maging mahirap pa kasi po yung mga farmer ngayon, lubog na sila. Sa unang bagyo pa lang, ano na yung mga taniman nila, ngayon bumalik, wala na talaga. Yung mga mangingisda ngayon na nag-ano lang din sa dagat, sa umuhay nila, hindi pa pwedeng ano din dahil dito. Talagang agriculture na yun. Agriculture na sa Pilipinas, very much situation. Ano na lang po, alam ko na maraming tao na mapagamak dito kasi sobrang lakas ako na nalulukod lang po. Hindi talaga ang malahibo ko. Grabe. Hindi maklaro yung mga tao, yung mga kabahayan. Sobrang lakas. Kahit ako nalulukod kasi magkalibalag rin na tao, yung mga bata. Parang ang kalikasan sobrang galit kahit ang dagat. Yes po, mag-pray lang po. Lalo na po sa inyo, hanggang kayo sa ano. Ganitong sobrang lakas, wala ka po. Yung mga palay ang harvest, wala na. Dagat parang sobrang galit ang tubig ko. At parang masuk anong galit. Yung tubig na yun. Parang nagwawala po ang ano, ang ulan, ang hangin, ang mga tubig. Sa dagat, ilog.
Sitwasyon sa bayan ng Baras. Ayan. So malakas na po ang hangin. Napakalakas ng hangin at kami po ay nasa ilalim na ng Tropical Cyclone Wind Signal number 5. At isa na pong ganap ng Dito tayo ngayon sa baba ng M-Dream-O building. Kung ating titingnan ay sobrang lakas na po ng hangin. Dahil sa ang mata ng bagyo ay halos dumidikit na po dito po sa may northern part ng Catanduanes. Particular dyan po sa may Pandan, Caramoran, and Biga. So malakas din po ang mga kaparas, malakas din ang alon at pumapasok na yung tubig dagat dito po sa kalsada. Hindi lang natin makita ng maayos dahil zero visibility tayo ngayon. So lubig yung hangin pala mga kaparas ay ano na, nagbago na kayo Berto? Nagbago ng hangin, ano na po dito?
Ano lang po yan? Tumagsa na yan.
Tumagsa. Bagyo pa yan, di ba?
Oo.
Bupang bayo sino?
Parang balos na rin yan.
Sa critical kitang sitwasyon tabidig di mga kaparas. Kuya po, kunyan sa M-Dream-O building. Ingat tabi mga kaparas, ingat po ang kapos. At nakapag-set up lang tayo ng Starlink. Malaking tulong talaga po ang Starlink sa ganito pong sitwasyon. At mayroon po tayong generator. Ano? Ayan, napakalakas ang hangin, delikado mga kaparas. Ito dyan. Atras tayo. Baka kasi tamaan tayo ng mga debris.
Ingat ka dun dyan, nag-vlog ka. Daming lumilipad ng mga request.
Magandang umaga, mga kaparas. Ang sitwasyon ngayon dito sa amin sa bayan ng Baras ay ginising kami kanina madaling araw ng sobrang lakas. At sa lukuyan po ay nasa gilid na po ng high wall ng bagyong uwan ang Catanduanes. At kaya po ay may nabuwal ng sanga ng kahoy. Kasalukuyan po tayo po ay nasa signal number 4 ang probinsya ng Catanduanes. Halos hindi na makita ang kalimutan sa lakas ng ulan at lakas ng hangin. Ngayon po itong alas 5 ng umaga, mga kaparas.
Sana makikita yan ng mga politikal na kurap. Ano nangyayari sa bansa ngayon. Dahil sa mga corruption, pati mga inusinting ng tao na damay. Sana sila nalaman. Sobrang mga kurap kasi. Instead, ilagay sa tama ang pera ng bayan, kinukurap. Ngayon, tingnan nyo. Ang mga tao ngayon nadadamay. Bangayan ng politiko, hindi niasikaso yung problema ng tao sa Pilipinas. Oh my God! Number in the Philippines.
Nagkumpulan na po yung mga baka. Sira na yung iba.
Thank you so much for life. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Thank you for the very intelligent battery. Hussain. I think you have now the participation in the Philippines. Thank you so much for your Hussain. Thank you friends for support and family. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. When I say you will in my video, so I come with you when finish my life and to support also. I'm going also to your video. Thank you so much. Hello to all my brother and friends. Thank you for like and subscribe. Thank you, Binada Music Channel. Thank you also. I'm just suffering with the situation now. Ayan, ano sila ko? Pinutol yung puno kasi hindi sila makadaan. Sinutumba ang mga punong kahoy. Hindi ma-rescue yung mga tao na dapat rescue dahil sa puno na natumba. Ang laki ng hamon.
Uy, yung motor! Ngayon na! Inaabot na guys! Inaabot yung mga motor oh! Ala, yan na!
Andyan ka na nga sa bad situation, yung bunganga mo, bad words pa.
Paano ka ba dadaan ngayon?
Sinabawan! Sinabawan! Sinigang me! Babae ka naman, wala sa bubungan! Hoy! Hoy! Wala ka yan! Wala ka yan!
Ngayon kasi kahit delikado na pupunta sa doon sa mga ano para nakakapag-vlog yan tuloy. Total kaya video sila na sa buhay din. Pray for Philippines. Pray for Philippines.
November 8th, 2025. The Philippines, an archipelago of over 7,600 islands battered relentlessly by the Pacific typhoon belt, braces for yet another catastrophic strike. Just 48 hours after Typhoon Tino, internationally known as Kalmegi, exited the Philippine area of responsibility, claiming nearly 200 lives, displacing over 1 million, and leaving billions in damage across Visayas and Palawan. Super Typhoon Yuan, international name, Fenghuang surges toward the nation as its 21st tropical cyclone of the year and the second in November alone. with maximum sustained winds already at 140 km per hour and gusts up to 170 km per hour, poised to explode into super typhoon strength exceeding 185 km per hour by tonight. This behemoth threatens devastating landfall in northern Luzon, unleashing life-threatening storm surges up to 5 meters, torrential rains of 200 millimeters or more, and gale-force winds capable of leveling homes and infrastructure. Pagasa warns, this is no ordinary storm. It's enormous, rapid, and unforgiving. Evacuations are underway across 54 provinces, from the eastern shores of Samar to the bustling streets of Metro Manila. Yuan's story began humbly as a tropical depression 1,690 kilometers east of northeastern Mindanao on November 6th, packing modest winds of 55 kilometers per hour. But fueled by warm Philippine sea waters exceeding 29 degrees Celsius in low wind shear, it underwent explosive intensification. By late Friday, November 7th, it entered the PAR at 10 p.m. as a severe tropical storm. This morning at 5 a.m., Pagasa up to typhoon status with 130 kilometers per hour winds. By 11 a.m., it hit 140 kilometers per hour sustained, gusting to 170, racing toward Category 4 or 5 equivalent by Sunday evening. Japan's JMA and the U.S. Joint Typhoon Warning Center agree. Yuan's tracks west-northwest at 20 to 25 kilometers per hour, potentially shifting slightly south for a direct hit on Catanduanes before slamming into southern Isabela or northern Aurora late Sunday night or early Monday morning, November 10th. After carving through northern Luzon's rugged mountains, it will emerge into the West Philippine Sea by Monday afternoon, likely weakening but still dumping heavy rains across the region. Experts call it a monster storm. Its diameter rivals the country's width, ensuring no island escapes its fury. As of 11 a.m. today, Yuan Center lurks 600 kilometers east of Virac, Catanduanes, with its eye wall tightening and convection exploding outward. Pagasa has hoisted tropical cyclone wind signal number 3 over 5 key provinces: Catanduanes, Albay, Sorsogon, and the Samar Islands, where storm force winds will howl for 18 hours, uprooting trees, ripping roofs, and triggering power outages. Signal number 2 blankets much of Bicol, Samar, and eastern Quezon, while num. 1 ripples into Metro Manila, Cavite, and even parts of Palawan and Mindanao. But the real killers aren't just the winds. Pagasa forecasts deadly storm surges of 3 to 5 meters in low-lying coastal areas from Sorsogon to Isabela, enough to inundate communities up to 4 kilometers inland. Moderate to torrential rains will lash the nation. 200 millimeters in Bicol and eastern Visayas today through Sunday, 100 to 200 millimeters across northern and central Luzon during landfall, and scattered downpours elsewhere. Flooding, landslides, and river overflows are imminent, especially in soil-saturated areas still reeling from Tina. Fishing boats are ordered back to port. All maritime travel is suspended. Thank you for watching. We deliver in-depth analysis of nature's fiercest phenomena. If you found this helpful, like, comment, and subscribe, thanks. Note, some footage is illustrative. Stay safe and informed. The human toll mounts before a single gust hits. Over 10,000 families, more than 50,000 people, have been preemptively evacuated from coastal, low-lying, and landslide-prone zones in Baikal, eastern Visayas, and eastern Luzon. In Sorsogon alone, the provincial gymnasium shelters 244 families as of noon today. Naga City's Holy Cross Parish overflows with evacuees from Tabuco. Tabaco City's children's home buzzes with activity. The Archdiocese of Manila opens churches, schools, and facilities to street dwellers and the vulnerable, providing roofs, restrooms, and clean water. Classes are suspended in 20 provinces through Monday. Flights from Manila, Cebu, and regional hubs are grounded. Philippine Airlines and Cebu Pacific report hundreds canceled. Ports halt operations. Bridges and roads in risk zones face closures. In Cebu, still scarred by Tino's historic flash floods that killed 139, teams probe flood controls amid fears of repeat devastation. The U.S. Embassy issues a weather alert, augmenting relief with shelter kits, logistics, and water purification for hardest-hit communities. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has activated national alert status, dispatching NDRRMC teams nationwide. We learned from Tino, he said in a briefing, evacuate now, lives over property. But with 500,000 still in temporary shelters from the prior storm, resources strain. International aid from the UN, Red Cross, and neighbors like Japan and the US pours in. But experts warn back-to-back hits amplify vulnerability in this climate-ravaged nation. November 8th, 2025, barely 48 hours after Typhoon Tino, international name Kalmegi, carved a path of unimaginable devastation, claiming over 200 lives, displacing 1.2 million, and racking up $3.5 billion in damages across Cebu, Visayas, and Palawan. The Philippines stares down its cruelest test yet. Super Typhoon Yuan, Bungwang, the 21st cyclone of this hyperactive season and November's second fury, explodes in intensity over the Philippine Sea, its massive arms already draping gale winds and biblical rains across the archipelago. With sustained winds surging to 150 kilometers per hour, gusts ripping to 185 kilometers per hour, and projections of Category 5 ferocity exceeding 220 kilometers per hour by Sunday, Yuan threatens a direct hit in northern regions. Pagasa's stark warning. Life-threatening storm surges of 3 to 5 meters could swallow coastal towns whole, while torrential downpours of 200 to 400 millimeters in 24 hours ignite flash floods and landslides in soil already sodden from Tino. Over 54 provinces, from the storm-battered Bicol region to the teeming streets of Metro Manila, brace under escalating winds. Evacuations swell past 75,000 people, classes shutter in 25 provinces, and flights ground nationwide. This is no glancing blow. It's a monster poised to engulf the nation. typhoon's rampage ignited on November 5th as a feeble tropical depression lurking 1,690 kilometers east of northeastern Mindanao, whispering winds of just 55 kilometers per hour. But in the typhoon factory at the warm Philippine Sea, waters heated to anomalous 29 to 30 degrees Celsius by a stubborn El Nino hangover and human-amplified climate change, it ignited like dry tinder. By November 6th, Pagasa christened it a tropical storm. Friday evening, November 7th at 10 p.m., it stormed into the Philippine Area of Responsibility, PAR, as a severe tropical storm packing 120 kilometers per hour. Overnight into Saturday morning, the beast underwent explosive rapid intensification, winds leaping from 130 per hour at 5 a.m. to 140 per hour by 11 a.m., gusts to 170 kilometers per hour. As of 5 p.m. today, November 8th, Yuan's core howls at 150 km/h sustained, gusting 185 km per hour, with central pressure dipping to 960 hPa. The U.S. Joint Typhoon Warning Center, JTWC, and Japan's JMA concur. By Saturday night or Sunday morning, November 9th, it will crest as a super typhoon, 185 plus km per hour, potentially flirting with Category 5 status and 220 km/h gusts, rivaling the infamous Yolanda Hussain 2013. Its gargantuan size, 1,500 kilometers across, nearly spanning the archipelago, ensures no escape. Moving west-northwest at 25 to 35 kilometers per hour, a slight southward wobble raises the speck of a bullseye on Catanduanes Sunday morning, before slamming southern Isabela or northern Aurora late Sunday evening or early Monday, November 10th. Northern Luzon's jagged Sierra Madre and Cordillera Mountains will batter it. But Yuan emerges into the West Philippine Sea by Monday afternoon as a still potent typhoon, veering north-northwest before dissipating by Tuesday, November 11, leaving a sodden wake of peril. Thank you for watching. We deliver in-depth analysis of nature's fiercest phenomena. If you found this helpful, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for future updates. Note, some footage is illustrative. Stay safe and informed. Pagasa's midday presser painted a dire canvas. Yuan's eyewall tightens 600 kilometers east of Virac, Catanduanes, its rain bands already dousing Samar and Bicol with 100 millimeters bursts. Tropical cyclone wind signal number 3, heralding destructive gales, now flies over 7 provinces, up from 5 at dawn. Catanduanes, Albay, Sorsogon, Camarines Norte Sur, northern eastern Samar, and Aurora Quezon's vulnerable east. Number 2 blankets Metro Manila and 34 others, including the flood-scarred Cebu and entire Bicol Visayas swaths, while number 1 whispers threats to 24 more from Palawan to Surigao del Norte. The silent assassins loom larger, storm surges of 3 to 5 meters, towering walls of froth, poised to reach 4 kilometers inland in Sorsogon, Albay, Samar, and Isabela, swamping fishing villages and eroding beaches. Rains, moderate to torrential, 200 millimeters today, Sunday, in Bicol, eastern Visayas, 100 to 200 millimeters across central northern Luzon at landfall, scattered deluges nationwide, except Batangas. As of 11 p.m. Saturday, November 8th, Hussain has further intensified, its center now lurking just 380 kilometers east of Iraq, Catanduanes, packing maximum sustained winds of 140 kilometers per hour near the center, with gustiness surging to 170 kilometers per hour. We're on the cusp of super typhoon status. Winds could exceed 185 kilometers per hour by tomorrow evening, and the track is locked on a west-northwest path of 25 to 35 kilometers per hour, threatening a direct hit on our eastern shores. Let's dive into the now. Hussain entered the Philippine area of responsibility last night at 10 p.m., already a severe tropical storm, and has since exploded in strength. From 130 kilometers per hour this morning to 40 kilometers per hour sustained by evening. That's rapid intensification, driven by sea surface temperatures hovering at 29 to 30 degrees Celsius, low vertical wind shear, and a moist atmosphere primed by lingering El Niño effects. Its central pressure has plummeted to 960 hectopascals, with the eye contracting to a tight 30 kilometer radius, a sign of its sharpening lethality. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center concurs. Hussain's circulation spans 1,500 kilometers, nearly the archipelago's breadth, meaning rain bands are already soaking eastern Visayas and Bicol with 50 to 100 millimeter bursts per hour. No eyewall replacement cycles yet, but high shear at 25 to 30 knots could tomorrow's surge, though not enough to downgrade the threat. For context, this mirrors the explosive growth of Typhoon Yolanda in 2013, but with a broader footprint.
Holy shit, oh my god.
Hussain's forecast track remains steady, west-northwest today and tomorrow, November 9th, before veering north-northwest by Tuesday, November 11th. Expect the eye to skim perilously close to Catanduanes by Sunday morning, potentially a direct eyewall hit if our model's southward shift materializes. Peak intensity landfall looms late Sunday evening or early Monday morning over southern Isabela or northern Aurora, where mountainous terrain will begin eroding its power. Post-landfall, Hussain traverses northern Luzon's Sierra Madre and Cordillera ranges, likely weakening to typhoon strength, but dumping 100 to 200 millimeters more en route to the West Philippine Sea by Monday afternoon. Lingering low over the sea Tuesday could prolong rains into midweek. Confidence is high, 85% within the cone, but monitor for updates. Small deviations could spell hits on Cagayan to the north or Camarines Sur to the south. Pegasus ensemble models, fed by ECMWGF data, show no mercy. This is a once-in-a-season beast. Thank you for watching. We deliver in-depth analysis of nature's fiercest phenomena. If you found this helpful, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for future updates. Note, some footage is illustrative. Stay safe and informed.
Oh my god.
Nakakatakot naman, uy. So scary. Tuo ba ito?
Ruin is rapidly intensifying in the Philippines. At the very least, we need your prayers in Catanduanes.
Ayan, nasa pit niya bagyo. Yan, ang pit niya bagyo.
Paano yung sama?
In early November 2025, the Philippines faced one of its most formidable weather threats in recent history as Super Typhoon Yuen, internationally known as Fenghuang, swept across the archipelago with devastating force. With wind speeds exceeding 205 kilometers per hour and a storm diameter spanning over 1,400 kilometers, Yuen triggered the highest level storm alerts across Luzon, Visayas, and parts of Mindanao. Typhoon Yuen entered the Philippine Area of Responsibility, PAR, as a severe tropical storm and rapidly intensified into a super typhoon over the Philippine Sea. By November 9th, its eye was located approximately 415 kilometers east of Manila, moving west-northwestward at 33 kilometers per hour. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, PAGASA, issued signal number 5, the highest cyclone warning, over Aurora, Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, and Catanduanes. The storm's massive breadth meant that strong to storm force winds extended up to 780 kilometers from its center, affecting nearly the entire country. Pagasa warned that Yuen's trajectory would bring it close to Catanduanes before making landfall over Aurora Province late Sunday or early Monday. In anticipation of Yuen's landfall, nearly 1 million residents were evacuated from high-risk areas. Local governments, in coordination with the Office of Civil Defense, OCD, activated emergency shelters and pre-positioned relief supplies. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, DSWD, reported that over 2,000 evacuation centers were operational nationwide. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. placed the nation under a state of heightened alert, mobilizing military and police units to assist in rescue operations and logistical support. The National Disaster Reduction and Management Council, NDRRMC, issued advisories urging communities in flood-prone and landslide-prone areas to relocate immediately. As Yuen's outer bands swept across eastern Luzon and the Visayas, power outages were reported in Catanduanes, northern Samar, and parts of Camarines Sur. Transmission lines were toppled by gusts reaching 260 kilometers per hour, and several major roads became impassable due to fallen trees and debris. The Department of Public Works and Highways, DPWH, confirmed that at least 12 bridges were rendered unusable due to flooding and structural damage. In Virac, Catanduanes, video footage showed roofs torn off buildings and streets submerged under waist-deep water. Telecommunication services were intermittently disrupted, particularly in eastern Visayas, where cell towers were damaged. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, CAAP, suspended flights in and out of Baikal and eastern Visayas, stranding thousands of passengers. Typhoon Yuen struck during the peak of rice and corn harvest season, threatening billions of pesos in agricultural losses. The Department of Agriculture, DA, estimated that over 6,000 hectares of farmland were at risk, particularly in central Luzon and Baikal. Fishing communities along the eastern seaboard were also severely affected. Hundreds of boats were destroyed or swept away, and coastal fish pens were inundated. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, BFAR, warned of long-term disruptions to local seafood supply chains. Despite proactive evacuations, thousands of families were displaced, and many remain in temporary shelters with limited access to clean water and sanitation. Health officials raised concerns about potential outbreaks of waterborne diseases, especially in overcrowded evacuation centers. International aid organizations, including the Red Cross and UNICEF, began coordinating with local agencies to deliver food, hygiene kits, and medical supplies. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, pledged emergency funding to support relief efforts. Meteorologists noted that Yuan's rapid intensification and massive size were consistent with trends linked to climate change. Warmer ocean temperatures in the Pacific contributed to the storm's explosive growth, while competing subtropical ridges influenced its erratic path. Experts from the University of the Philippines Resilience Institute called for a reevaluation of the country's disaster preparedness protocols, emphasizing the need for climate-adaptive infrastructure, improved early warning systems, and community-based resilience programs. Fenghuang, which could cover two-thirds of the Southeast Asian archipelago with its 994-mile-wide rain and wind band, approached from the Pacific while the Philippines was still dealing with the devastation wrought by Typhoon Kalmiji, which left at least 224 people dead in central island provinces on Tuesday before pummeling Vietnam, where at least 5 were killed. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has declared a state of emergency due to the extensive devastation caused by Kalmiji and the expected calamity from Fenghuang, which is called Yuan in the Philippines. Fenghuang, with winds of up to 150 miles per hour and gusts of up to 143 miles per hour, was spotted by government forecasters before noon Sunday over coastal waters near the town of Pandan in eastern Catanduanes province, where torrential rains and fog have obscured visibility.
Baha na po siya. May mga inaanod na pong mga bato galing sa Mount Mayun. Grabe na po yan. Kanina pa po yan.
lalawigan ng Aurora, habang puspusan naman ang paghahanda ng mga otoridad sa posibleng paglapag o landfall ng Super Typhoon Uwan o Fungwong na inaasahang mararamdaman sa probinsya ngayong hapon hanggang mamayang gabi. Balikan natin si Erlo Bringas para sa detalye. Erlo?
Patuloy na pinag-iingat ng pamahalaang panlalawigan ng Aurora ang mga residente habang patuloy naman yung paghahanda para sa pagpaparamdam nitong bagyong Uwan mula ngayong gabi hanggang bukas ng madaling araw. Batay sa Aurora Province Situational Report number 2, lahat ng bayan ng lalawigan ay isinailalim na sa heightened alert. Ayon kay Engineer Amado Elson Egarque, ang chief ng PDRRMO ng Aurora, mula pa kaninang umaga nagpa-preemptive evacuation na rin sila ng mga lokal na pamahalaan, nagpa-preposition ng relief goods at tinitiyak yung kaligtasan din ng mga naninirahan sa mababang lugar at baybayin. Nakapaglabas na rin sila ng isang memorandum noon pang kahapon na nag-uutos ng suspension ng klase sa lahat ng antas sa trabaho at gobyerno sa Nobyembre 10 o araw ng bukas bilang pag-iwas na rin sa peligro. Pinagbabawal na rin ng Aurora Coast Guard Station ang lahat ng biyaheng pandagat na nagsimula pa ng November 8 alas 11:30 ng umaga. Kaya patuloy ang mahigpit na pagbabantay nila sa mga coastal area para matiyak na walang susuway sa nasabing kautusan. Naka-preposition naman ang Provincial Social Welfare and Development Office ng mga family food packs sa Dicadi area, kabilang ang Dilasag, Kasiguran at Dinalungan para sa agarang tulong sa mga apektadong residente. Nakaantabay din sa Aurora Emergency PNP, Coast Guard, DOH, DPWH at para sa agarang responde kung kakailanganin. Patuloy naman ang real-time monitoring ng mga ilog at flood-prone areas kasama ang DOST Pag-asa Storm Chasers team na nasa Baler o dito mismo sa Baler para sa field survey. At ayon naman sa Provincial Health Office, halos 1.9 million pesos na halaga ng health emergency commodities naman ang nakaposisyon dito nga sa mga bayan at ospital bilang pagsiguro sa kahandaan sa posibleng health crisis. Sa pagkaoras na ito, nandito tayo sa bahagi ng coastal area, sa bahagi pa rin ng Baler, Aurora. Ito yung sa bandang unahan kanina nung pinuntahan natin dito sa barangay Sabang. Ito, makikita nyo dito sa aking likuran, ipapakita natin ng kaunti. Iba na yung sitwasyon ng alon mula pa kaninang umaga. Mas lumala yung sitwasyon ngayon dahil sa yung kanina nga ay medyo na aninagan na pwede pang maglakad halos diyan sa mismong dalampasigan. Pero sa baga oras na ito ay pinapa-off limits na itong bahagi ng dalampasigan na ito dahil nga sa delikado na yung ampas ng alon. Actually, umaabot na nga hanggang dito sa likuran ko, dito mismo sa ating kinatatayuan. Ang payo lang ng mga kinaukulan dito sa mga residente, lalo na kasi yung iba dito may mga turista pang humihinto para mag-sightseeing, at hanggat maaari wag na lumapit na lang dito siguro sa may bandang dito sa may bandang dalampasigan dahil nga sa napakadelikado na ng alon at posibleng mas lumala pa yung sitwasyon hanggang maghahating gabi sa inaasahang pagpaparamdam nitong bagyong Uwan dito mismo sa probinsya ng Aurora. Yun ang update mula rito sa Aurora. Balik sa iyo.
Erlo, kung ikukumpara mo dun sa sitwasyon kanina yung panahon at ngayon, ano ang naging kaibahan?
Yung kanina ay medyo kumakalma ng konti pa kanina kasi nagkakaroon ng pag-ulan. Maya-maya magkakaroon na naman ng pagtahimik ng panahon. Pero ngayon tuloy-tuloy na mula pa kaninang alas 2 ng hapon. Parang indication lang na parang unti-unti ay magpaparamdam na nga itong bagyong Uwan na posibleng mas maramdaman ng mga nandito sa coastal barangay. Ayan, medyo
Importante na mga bata, wala nang manangko.
Mga bata yung taga, mga
Ano
bata
na to? Wala na to. Barangay, guys.
Lagi, mga ito ba yan? Mga bigaskin.
So, wala siya dumaan pa.
Uy, yung motor! Utang ina! Inaabot na guys! Inaabot yung mga motor oh! Ala, yan na! Utang ina!
Bunganga niya. Malakas ang bagyo kung ano pa, bad words pa. Malakas na nga ang bagyo, bad words pa. Imbis tawagan yung pangalan ng anak.
In early November 2025, the Philippines faced one of its most formidable weather.
Magandang umaga mula sa DOST Pag-asa. Narito ang latest weather update dito sa binabantayan nating bagyo na si Super Typhoon 1 ngayong linggo, November 9, 2025. Base po sa latest weather satellite image, kaninang alas 5 ng umaga ay naging ganap na Super Typhoon dito po sa may Dinagat Island, Surigao del Norte, northern portion ng Agusan del Norte, at northern portion ng Surigao del Sur. Kasalukuyan, itong si Juan ay maaari po magdala ng occasionally gusty condition, yung biglang bugso na malalakas na hangin na maaari pong umabot from strong to gale force strength sa mga areas po na hindi po kasama sa wind signal. For today, maaari po makaranas ng occasional gusty condition ang Palawan, Visayas at Mindanao. By tomorrow, November 10, maaari po makaranas ng occasional gusty condition ang majority po ng Luzon landmass at Visayas, at pagdating po ng Tuesday, ang majority po ng Luzon landmass ay maaari pong makaranas ng gusty conditions. Dahil po sa mga pag-ulan na dala po nitong Super Typhoon 1, ay kasalukuyan po naglabas po tayo ng heavy rainfall outlook kung saan maaari pong makaranas ng more than 200 millimeters na pag-ulan na maaari pong magdala ng widespread or incident ng severe flooding or landslide, particularly dito sa Isabela, dito sa Aurora, Quirino, Nueva Vizcaya, dito sa Nueva Ecija, Quezon Province, Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, Albay at probinsya ng Catanduanes. 100 to 200 millimeters naman na pag-ulan na maaari pong maranasan dito sa may Cagayan, Apayao, Abra, Kalinga, Mountain Province, Ifugao, Benguet, Nueva Vizcaya, Pampanga, Pangasinan, Tarlac, Zambales, Pampanga, Bulacan, Bataan, Metro Manila, Rizal, Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, kasama po ang Marinduque, Masbate, Sorsogon, Northern Samar Province, at itong Eastern Samar. Habang ina-expect naman po na makakaranas po ng 50 to 100 millimeters sa pag-ulan ang Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, La Union, itong Occidental Mindoro, Oriental Mindoro, Romblon at probinsya po ng Leyte. Bukas, dahil po sa pagtawid nitong bagyong Juan at by tomorrow po is inaasahan po natin na yung kanyang sentro is nandito na po sa may West Philippine Sea. So maaari pa rin po makaranas ng more than 200 millimeters sa pag-ulan ang Ilocos Sur, La Union, itong Pangasinan, Zambales, Tarlac, Benguet, Ifugao, Mountain Province at Kalinga, habang inaasahan naman po yung 100 to 200 millimeters na pag-ulan dito sa Abra, Ilocos Norte, Apayao, Cagayan, kasama pang Isabela, Quirino, Nueva Vizcaya, Nueva Ecija, Aurora, Bataan, Pampanga, Bulacan, habang 50 to 100 millimeters naman ng pag-ulan ang inaasahan sa Quezon Province, dito sa probinsya ng Rizal, Metro Manila, Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Marinduque, Oriental Mindoro at Occidental Mindoro. By Tuesday, dahil sa papalayo na po itong si Bagyong Juan, ay makakaranas pa rin
sugal yung buhay ko para sa anak ko. Kahit na magtiindi pa ako dito sa Saudi. Ganyan ka ng ganyan, susuplong kita sa matawa. Wesley.
kang iyon sa tahanan ni Shanice.
Sleepy. I'm sleepy.
Too much hot water, no food, no chair, just a cold floor and tap water. I listened to him laughing with his wife while I sat there alone. I gave him my whole life, and he gave me a locked door. When he finally opened it, I said nothing. But in my mind, I had already decided what I was going to do. Before I tell you what I did next, comment where you're watching from and what the time is it there right now. And please subscribe so my story can reach to more people like me. I raised my son alone after his mother passed away. She died when he was only 8 years old, and from that day, I promised myself I would never let him feel alone or unprotected. I worked every job I could find. Mornings as a janitor, evenings at a warehouse, weekends fixing anything people would pay me for. I went without new clothes for years, so he could have school uniforms, new shoes, and the best books. I skipped meals so he could eat 3 times a day. Every birthday, I made sure he had a cake, even if I had to bake it from scraps in the kitchen. When he wanted to play sports, I paid for his gear. When he needed help with homework, I stayed up late to help him, even after 12-hour shifts. I thought love and sacrifice would be enough to raise him into a man who respected me. When he grew older, I paid for his college so he wouldn't have debt. I didn't want him to struggle the way I had. I worked overtime, sometimes taking double shifts, to cover every tuition on time. I didn't tell him that while he was studying in warm classrooms, I was cleaning offices at night, my hands numb from cold water in the mop bucket. I thought it was worth it because I was investing in his future. I imagined him graduating, getting a good job, and maybe one day taking care of me the way I had taken care of him. When he got married, I wanted him to start his life without worry. I gave him a house, the house I had worked decades to buy. It was my wedding gift to him. I thought it would secure his future and keep him safe. I even told him, "This is yours now, so you'll always have a place to live." I didn't mention that the deed was still in my name, because in my mind, there was no reason to doubt him. He was my son. Why would I ever need to protect myself from my own child? I moved into one of the smaller bedrooms so they could have the main part of the house to themselves. I stayed out of their way. I cooked my own meals. I cleaned my own room. I thought I was being respectful. I didn't want to interfere in their marriage, and I believed that giving them space would keep our relationship peaceful. But little by little, things began to change. The gratitude I thought he felt for me, it started to fade. I was no longer the man who sacrificed for him. I became the old man in the back room. He began making small comments about the way I lived. At first, it was about the TV. You watch too late at night. Then it was about food. Stop buying so much milk. I told myself it was just him being stressed from work, maybe even worried about bills. But the comments kept coming. The way he looked at me shifted, from warmth to irritation. I had given him everything I had. I didn't keep savings for myself because I thought he would always make sure I had what I needed. I believed our bond was built on trust, respect, and love. But standing in that house, the one I bought, the one I gave him, I started to feel like a stranger. I could sense it in the way he avoided sitting with me, the way his wife barely spoke to me, the way they whispered behind closed doors and stopped when I walked in. Looking back, I think the problem started when I made life too easy for him. He never had to fight for anything the way I did. He never knew what it was like to be cold, hungry, and still have to go to work. He never learned how heavy sacrifice feels on a man's back. Because of that, he didn't value what he was given. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't value me anymore either. I still remember the day I first noticed his patience had run out. I had been fixing the garden fence in the back. It was something I always did to keep the place nice. He came outside, saw me working, and instead of saying thank you, he asked, "Why are you making noise right now? I'm trying to relax." I laughed it off, thinking maybe he was having a bad day. But inside, it hurt. It hurt because I realized he didn't see me as helping. He saw me as a bother. Even then, I didn't let my mind go to the dark place. I still thought, he's my son. He'll come around. I thought about all the years I had been there for him. How could he forget the man who carried him on his shoulders when he was too tired to walk? The man who worked himself sick so he could live without debt? The man who gave him a house without asking for a penny in return? I told myself blood was stronger than irritation. That deep down, he still respected me. But that belief, that hope, was the same thing that blinded me to what was coming next. I didn't see how far the disrespect would go. I didn't see how my own son, the boy I raised with my own hands, could turn around and treat me not as a father, but as someone in the way. That was before the night he decided to lock me in the bathroom. Before I realized that all my sacrifices, all my love, and all my years of work meant nothing to him anymore. Before I understood that sometimes the people you give everything to are the same people who will take the last piece of dignity you have left. It started with little things, so small at first that I told myself not to make a big deal out of them. My son began acting like the house wasn't mine anymore, like I was just a guest who stayed too long. He would walk into my room without knocking and tell me the TV was too loud, even when the volume was barely up. He complained about the way I folded laundry. He told me I shouldn't cook certain foods because the smell stays in the house too long. These were things I had been doing for decades, but suddenly they were a problem. I brushed it off as stress from his job. I told myself marriage changes people. Maybe he was adjusting to having both his wife and me under the same roof. But deep down, something in me started to feel uneasy. The warmth in his voice when he spoke to me was gone. His words were shorter, colder. I could hear the irritation in his tone, as if every little thing I did was some kind of inconvenience to him. It didn't stop there. He began controlling things in the house, the thermostat, the lights, the hot water. I'd go to take a shower and find that the water never got warm enough. I later realized he had turned down the water heater to save money. If I left a light on in the hallway because I didn't want to trip at night, he would turn it off and say, "You're wasting electricity." I had lived frugally my entire life, but now it felt like he was treating me as if I didn't understand basic responsibility. The worst part wasn't the rules, it was the way he enforced them. He would say things with a sharpness that cut deeper than I wanted to admit. It wasn't, "Dad, could you turn off the light when you're done?" It was, "Why are you leaving lights on? Do you think this place runs on free electricity?" That tone, it made me feel small. It made me feel like I was living in a stranger's house instead of the home. you.